America.
Small, lay a big hit and pass a kickball. This game is for us all. From Seattle down toward the Keys, this game is you, this game is me. Cats, dogs, and steer, be the tree. This game is America, so sing it loud with me. College football forever. College football forever. Downtown LA, Starkville City. 1 week you're up next, take a dip. Run the rock or let it rip. This game is America. All say, can you sing it with me?
We just stepped on her face with a hot-tail Logan brought her nose. Whoa, Nelly!
College football forever. College football forever. College football forever. College football forever.
College football is a year-round discussion with these two. Here's JC and Morgan. Mike Morgan of ESPN and JC Shurburtt of 24/7 Sports have you covered, beginning right now.
Oh, man. I've got goosebumps after that. Are you kidding me? Nice work, Mr. Shurburtt. That is awesome.
Yeah,
and I was watching it on my phone, but I actually have a greater appreciation seeing it now on the bigger screen that we do these on with the laptop.
Yeah, I just tried to include just about, a hodgepodge of things, little Easter eggs in there a little bit. The South Dakota State Jackrabbits National Championship celebration I thought was a nice touch. And that photo of Mike Leach and the opening is a good video they shot at Marshall, actually, when they so Marshall's first thing you see before Touchdown Jesus, but that took me forever.
Worth the wait, though.
Yeah, I wrote the lyrics to the song, but I got some help with the music, obviously, because I'm not a musician. But
wait a minute, you wrote the lyrics to the song?
Yeah, did you not?
I didn't know that.
Did you miss that? No, I did. Otherwise, we'd get a copyright infringement, dude. It's YouTube, brother.
I mean, for those that don't know, we are very happy to have a YouTube audience in addition to all the other platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Spotify. I know a number of you that you're kind of set in your ways. It's just an audio only, and that's fine. You don't have to look at our faces. But, I mean, you could still just, even if you have it on YouTube, you don't have to look at us. The sound quality is just as good. But when we play certain music, we are, to use a term, dinged we're not allowed. I don't know the rules as well as you do, JC. We can't make money on certain things if we're playing certain copyrighted music, right?
It's hit or miss. Yeah, and sometimes we have to eliminate it and stuff. But I mean, I think our audience is fine with this show. We ran into a little bit of an issue where it's supposed to just take out the song, but it took out like the whole segment one time. But you can always go back and, like you said, listen on Spotify or Apple or whatever for it. But but that's I thought, well, heck, why not do something original? That way, it's like I mean, you and I are really big into TV and movies and stuff.
Yes.
And some of the most, I think I texted you over the weekend. It's like, it'll be like the Family Ties theme song. An epic song in and of itself. But anyway, yeah, it's kind of my little love letter to college football.
Well, so, okay, two quick questions. Number one, we didn't address this, but a few weeks ago, our final segment was completely muted on YouTube. Is that because was it because of JB and playing the boss? Okay.
So we had the boss. Now, the YouTube has a beta testing thing where it's supposed to just delete the music. But I think the music was up loud.
Yeah.
And the music took us all the way home.
Yes.
At the end of the segment. So that's why, of course, James Brown stuff is going to be. But I mean, we used it all year last year, and I never got anything from YouTube about it. It's very inconsistent. And the big problem is if you gripe about it and say, hey, I think we can really use this. If you're wrong 2 or 3 times and it's a computer that determines this, they'll take your channel away. And there's a lot that's on this channel. So I'm very cautious about what I do not protest too much about that. But yeah, I figured, and I've had this in the works for a couple of weeks. It takes a long time to kind of sit down and get all the video and photos together and put it in iMovie. And there's 2 different versions. You can go to our YouTube page, Chief Source South Carolina, and see that just if you just want to listen to the song, you can listen to the song. So that's good. But I do all right. A pretty good lyricist.
That's I am beyond. I mean, it sounds so well done. I thought somebody in Nashville put this thing together, and you found it, and somehow that was cleared through copyright protocol. So who's singing?
I don't know. Somebody's voice. I called the house band. There's some technology nowadays, Mike, that you can use to have music and vocals and everything else. If you could write words, and sometimes it comes out great, sometimes it doesn't. But
that's like a pro. That's like we got to give him a record deal, whoever that guy is.
Yeah, I wish I knew who it was.
It's not a robot. It's not AI singing. That's an actual person.
Yeah, I mean, but the program that puts it together is AI.
Okay,
it's a Skynet. Skynet or the machine from the Matrix, whatever you want to, because I think that's the same movie, and I'll never Terminator and Matrix are the same. I'll never come off that. That computer, whatever it is, it can form, it can change, become different people or whatever. No, that's when people talk these days about voiceover actors and like, demo singers and things like that having more jobs because of AI. It's because of that. But that's
okay.
That's it. I know. I mean, look, I can't play instruments, and I really can only sing karaoke. I mean, certain songs I couldn't perform it, and it would cost thousands of dollars to do it. And but the program I have, I pay per month for, pretty penny, but I pay per month for it, and it's it worked out pretty well.
Well, you're being modest. You could have told me that was a professional songwriter and who wrote it in Nashville, and it finally came to fruition where it was now on radio stations across the great United States of America, and I would have believed every word of that. So that's really cool. So this is a problem with me. Sometimes I see an email, and I guess I don't know if you texted it to me or emailed it to me, and I'll scan, and I don't read every word because I don't know, my brain, it just,
I'm the same way.
Yeah. And so I'll miss a very important detail, which obviously I'm guessing you said, by the way, Mike, I wrote this. I didn't see that. I thought that was Yeah.
I don't know that I did.
I don't think you
I may have
did.
said I was proud of it. You may have thought I was talking about the video, which did. The
Yeah,
video
yeah.
took more time than the lyrics. I'll tell
Well, the
you.
video is awesome, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching it. And I'm thinking how lucky I am because, I mean, from the Larry Munson, who I knew, I'd broadcasted games in booths next to Larry. Used to have him on my show from time to time. I think you had Andre Ware in there. I've done television games with the Heisman Trophy winner. Nick Saban. I've sat in a room for 30 minutes for the handful of games I did when he was coaching Alabama. And I'm just watching all that, and I'm thinking I've had a really good seat for a lot of college football during my time. Now, I can't go back to Newt Rockne. I'd probably be 6 feet under if I could. But for the last few decades, so much of my life has been intertwined with this sport that we call college football, and we love it year round on this show. So that's really cool. The one thing, too, that hit home is one of the things you picked. It's the Pirate. It's Mike Leach with the patch, and I got to know Mike fairly well. In fact, the last game I did with Mike Leach, it was the Mississippi State spring game. Well, that's not true. I also did their game against Georgia. They lost that year at home. That was a national radio game. But but the spring game, we just sat down with him and he talked about it. We had the video and we played it. He had a little like lake or river in his backyard in Starkville. And if you can imagine this, Mike Leach would go out there and paddleboard every day. So he talked about his love of paddle, and we had the video of it. There's Mike.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if you're one of the neighbors and you look outside, there's Mike Leach is paddleboarding here in the neighborhood. But we do miss Mike Leach, and obviously Mississippi State does as we kind of jump into the week 4 that was in college football. There's a lot of play. It wasn't a great slate of games. I hate saying that because it just sounds so Debbie Downer. There's always good games in college football. Like, there's never a week that's just a complete dud. But you didn't have, I mean, when you're highlighting Tennessee, Oklahoma, which we'll get to, I think most of us thought Tennessee was in a different class, and that showed out on the field Saturday. When you're talking about Michigan, Southern Cal, I think that lived up to the hype, although I don't know how good either one of those teams are in the final analysis in terms of, being national championship good. But since we mentioned it, Mississippi State, that is one of the worst teams that Mississippi State has had in a long, they have no defense whatsoever. None. And Jeff Lebby is going to do good things there maybe in time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I think it's a good hire, but he inherited an absolute mess.
They just don't have anybody on defense, especially Mike. I mean, they can compete offensively a little bit. I did hear where their quarter. I'm sorry, I didn't look for an update. It's Tuesday, and there's probably an update. But the quarterback may have gotten hurt against Florida. But I mean, Florida looked like the Gators under Steve Spurrier going up and down the field on these guys, and that's on top of Toledo doing it. And Arizona State had a big lead against them in the second week of the season. I mean, it's not good in Starkville. I did want to say this, though. I thought about this over the weekend. People are talking about Jeff Lebby getting fired.
No.
There's no way in hell they're going to fire him after one season. That would be 4 coaches in 4 years at Mississippi State. And you can't, I mean, you got to recruit your way out of it. You got to hit the portal and get some dudes. It's kind of what happens sometimes when you have like coaching instability over time, and you don't necessarily hit the jackpot in the portal, and then you have some injuries and stuff. I mean, that's kind of what happens to some of these teams. But they don't play Vanderbilt this year, do they? I was going to say.
Oh, I'd have to look that up.
If I'm them, I don't want to. No, I don't. I looked at Vandy's schedule yesterday. The Vandy's schedule is actually pretty tough, but but the kill zone.
The kill.
Missouri escaped.
I thought of you during that game as well. I thought of you watching Vanderbilt damn near pull it off. By the way, because you have me eerily curious. No, Mississippi State does not play Vanderbilt in the clash of non-Titans.
And I want to apologize to everybody on this show and the other show. I'd kind of been talking up Mississippi State as a potential team that could upset Texas.
Oof,
could be the worst take I've ever had.
I missed that. That take was so bad, I probably just blocked it out. I don't
I've
remember
had
you
some
saying
doozies
that.
over the years. Probably more right than wrong, but man,
Well, I do remember
that one was
this.
bad.
Not to pile on. You, like many, let me stress that. This was not JC alone on this island. There were a lot of people out there that said, "Yeah, Texas, Texas, Texas. Just wait till you're in the SEC, Texas, and you're gonna see what life is like in an actual legitimate power conference." Fact of the matter is, nobody in college football looks better than Texas right now. Now it's early, and they're gonna play some big games. They've got Georgia at home and whatnot.
They look
But
good.
I think Texas is pretty damn legit.
Deserves to be number one. They haven't, but I will say they haven't played an SEC game yet. Now,
Yeah, that's
I don't
right.
think Mississippi State's a 38-point underdog. I don't know that those three letters SEC are going to matter Saturday. But and I was talking to a coaching friend of mine who has some family members that coach in the SEC over the weekend, Mike, and we were talking about the ACC, SEC, different leagues and stuff. It's like, here's the difference. He's like, in addition to the D lines and athletes and all the things we talk about, it's like in the SEC and Crane, who we had on the show over the summer in the preseason, pointed this out. It's kind of a game of attrition, whereas if you have this big game, and it's a very physical football game, and you come out of it not necessarily injured, but banged up, not 100%. And then you get to go play Wake Forest, or you get to go play Virginia or Duke or whoever in the ACC, or if you're in the Big Ten, maybe you have, name your team that's not that good. I would say Indiana, but they're pretty good. But you have some breaks in the schedule.
Oh, Purdue is awful. With all due respect to one of our listeners, Purdue Kenny.
Purdue Pete is sad. He is a sad puppy right now. The most terrifying mascot in all of college football, Purdue Pete. But you do have some breaks. Now that Vanderbilt's competitive, I know Mississippi State and Florida, maybe Auburn are kind of down, but dude, it's just every week you got to get up and go play Oklahoma, or you got to go play Alabama, or you got to go play Tennessee. And that wears on a football team. That's why depth is very important. It's not something we always talk about in college football. We don't always talk about who's out and who's injured, but it's true. That's the difference between like the Big 12, where Texas could sit there and piddle around and still beat Kansas State in overtime, or piddle around and still beat TCU, or sometimes, quite frankly, they lost those games. And that was my thing with Texas. Now, I saw Mississippi State being kind of bottom third of the league. I didn't see it. I thought they kind of be like Arkansas. Arkansas's got a pretty good football team, that can beat you, as Auburn found out this weekend. They're not world beaters, but they're okay. I thought Mississippi State kind of be like that. I didn't expect them to be terrible, but that was my point on Texas. But I'm going to give Texas props until I don't have to anymore.
Yeah,
I will give them props. I've been wanting them to do this. They've just been disappointing to me.
Your point on Texas was it was 5 years earlier. In other words, 5 years ago, I do think Texas was in a state where they would have gotten into the SEC. It would have been humbled greatly. But what they have now, I think they finally found the right coach. And it's not like Sarkisian, went 10-2 his first year. They didn't get out of the gates that fast.
5-7.
That's right. But he just seems to be a fit. And they finally have saw, I think I mentioned some stats last week. Texas they're about to have their first lineman go in the first round in over a decade. They went years without guys drafted at all. They went years without a first round pick at any position. With all those recruiting classes that were always seemed to be highly ranked, clearly they were either not developing players or flat out missing on the 4 or 5 star guys. But that's not the issue now. That is a loaded roster again, with 2 7-figure NIL quarterbacks that they can just, one gets dinged up. That's okay. We'll just bring in Arch Manning, no problem. It's a luxury that no other team in the country has right now. They're solid on both lines of scrimmage. Their skill players are great. They lose one of the best running backs in the country. That's all right. We scrap out another 5-star. We're Texas.
That's the thing. Their player development's back.
It's back. It's back.
It's back,
Texas,
dude.
Texas is back. The time to pile on Texas was before, but this is not your Tom Herman, Charlie Strong, early Sarkisian Texas Longhorns anymore. They are legit, and it's gonna be a fun race in the SEC. On that note, let me do the deep dive here. Phil, our producer, Phil Molinax, our fearless producer. We have been, I miss Rodney. I miss the triple Lindy.
He gets no respect.
Put on your scuba gear. Mike's taking on a deep dive.
I am. I do this every week, and I never know what's gonna spark the inspiration. But one of my misses this week in the pick category was taking Auburn. I thought Auburn at home would find a way, or to use your expression, JC, man up and beat an Arkansas team. That's, they're better than maybe expected, but it's still an Arkansas team with a lot of flaws. And Auburn loses, and they don't look good doing it.
I'll say one thing. That game looked more like hot potato for the first 3 quarters. Hot potato. Well, I don't want it. You want it?
Yeah,
I don't want
it. Yeah, it was turnover fest. It was not pretty, but really, really ugly for Auburn. Here's a couple of numbers. Here's a deep dive on Gus Malzahn and Auburn coaches in the recent years on the Plains. Okay, let's go back to Gus, who, by the way, has an undefeated UCF team gearing up to go to the Swamp and possibly beat Florida, and then possibly compete for the Big 12 championship. Gus is already doing good things in his new job at UCF. And UCF is in a power conference, so this is not Arkansas State. They fired Gus Malzahn after going 68-35. Okay, now I can do quick math in my head. If you're 70-35, that's 67%. So he's pretty damn close to winning 67% of his games. 3 wins over Nick Saban. Okay. Well, what about his conference record? Did he just feast up? No, 38-27 in the SEC. Now, that might not be what every Auburn fan wants, but when you're 11 games over 500 in the Southeastern Conference, that typically doesn't get you fired at most programs, okay? When Gus was the OC, of course, Auburn wins a national championship. Now, what does he do? He's got to be a head coach. So he takes the Arkansas State job in 2011. What does Auburn do without Gus? Gene Chizik finding a new OC. JC's shaking his head. That's right. It was bad. 3-9, 0-8 in the SEC under Gene without Gus. So at that point, that did 2 things. It established Gus Malzahn as one of the better offensive minds in the sport, and it established that Gene Chizik, who I love, was not going to last very long at Auburn. And he didn't, despite winning a national championship. So he goes to Arkansas State. What does he do? He goes 9-3, and he wins the Sun Belt, and goes to one of my favorite bowl games of all time, the GoDaddy.com Bowl. GoDaddy.com Bowl. So right away, right then and there, it's like, okay, that's our guy, and he's got Arkansas ties. Arkansas might want him. Auburn's like, we're man up. Let's go off. Let's back up the Brinks and get him. In year 1, what does he do? 2013, how about an SEC championship with a guy named Nick Marshall, who's a good college quarterback, not a great passing, not an NFL prospect, but with his offense and with his scheming, Nick Marshall looked pretty damn good, right? So they win
Trey Battle too on that team.
Battle, yeah. Excuse me, I've been battling a cold. Fast forward a few years, and by the way, they play for the national championship. They lose, but it was a close game. They get to another SEC championship game in 2017. They lose to Georgia. All the while this is happening, the power brokers at Auburn are like, well, this is good, but it's not good enough, damn it. Alabama's winning national championships. We should be winning national championships. So what do? 2020, after an 8th winning season, 8, they fire Gus Malzahn. So he wins 2 out of 3 games. He beats Alabama more than most. He wins an SEC title. He plays for another. He's in the championship game. He's got 4.5 guys drafted per year. So he's bringing in talent. He's developing talent. They fire him. So what has Auburn been since they fired Gus Malzahn? 68-35, 38-27 in the SEC. Brian Harsin comes in. Brian Harsin, not the first choice by any stretch, but that's who they landed on, and everybody was sold a bill of goods that Brian Harsin was a great offensive mind from Boise. He's going to do great things. 9-8. Can't have that at Auburn. Get him out of there. Get him out of there. Middle of year 2, get him out of there. Who are you going to get? Well, there's a lot of teams, fan bases, that wanted Hugh Freeze. Hugh Freeze did a hell of a lot of good things at Ole Miss, and then he found contrition at Liberty, and he won there, and so he gets the job, and it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, biggest no-brainer hire ever.
Biggest no-brainer, right? Did anybody say that's a bad hire? No. I mean, no. If you could get past some of the off-the-field stuff, no-brainer hire. Under Hugh Freeze, 8-9. So since they fired Gus, the 2 coaches they have hired, I'm not including interim, not including Cadillac, the 2 coaches they hired, Harsin and Freeze, JC, they are 17-17 overall. That's not including a losing SEC record. So that is your deep dive on Gus and Auburn coaching. And yes, there is angst on the plains,
which is crazy to me. I mean, I thought, I thought Brian Harsin was kind of a, oh yeah, whatever hire. I was like, that guy, he came in, you talk cultural fit. I think it's obvious he wasn't a cultural fit, but sometimes, I mean, LSU's coaches all come from the Midwest except Ed Orgeron. Les Miles was a Michigan man. Nick Saban, his entire career was kind of in the Midwest before he came to LSU. Jerry DiNardo, it's not odd for certain schools to go after guys from out of the footprint, and they do well. Kalen DeBoer at Alabama is going to do pretty well. Harsin, though, it was just like he was kind of like the guy that followed the guy that followed the guy. I mean, Chris Peterson followed Dan Hawkins, who got Boise going. Intramurals, brother. Dan Hawkins, who took Colorado. It was a disaster, but and that was good. That was kind of like Chip Kelly replacing Mike Bellotti, quite frankly. Peterson is an excellent coach. And then he leaves, and then Harsin gets it. He's been at Arkansas State. A lot of Arkansas State coaches have gone on to do good things, including Gus Malzahn, including Hugh Freeze. So I get it. But the guy was just sort of robotic. He wanted to recruit like he recruited at Boise. You can't do that. I mean, you got to go. And then Auburn did the Auburn thing and filled his first staff full of SEC dudes like Mike Bobo. And that just clashed, quite frankly. Derek Mason, they all got the hell out after 1 year. Then after the second year, he was just gone. I mean, somebody tried to start a rumor about him, and it was bad. And so Hugh Freeze, though, that you looked at that and you went, wow. And then you look at last year and you're like, well, they did lose to – they should have beat – shouldn't have lost to New Mexico. They got put in the kill zone last year. And that wasn't the game that did it for me. I was like, well, that's a special prep. And you got it right there sandwiched, before the Iron Bowl. And those kids probably sleptwalk, and you can't sleepwalk. That happens. I kind of forgave that. What I didn't forgive was the loss to Maryland in the Music City Bowl, where they got blown out. Maryland was missing Tagovailoa, their quarterback, who just allegedly decided he was going to appeal for an extra year with the NCAA and chase NIL money and then just left. And they got nothing. That's Tua's brother, who was pretty good. So Maryland didn't even have their starting quarterback. They blew Auburn out. That was the day. That day was on the day of my wedding. I think you were in Gainesville, called a basketball game, so you may not have caught that. But
right.
Either the day of my wedding or the day before, I'm sitting down in Florida about to get hitched watching this game going, my God, Maryland's just beating their butt. And they did. And so then I was like, all right, well, that's fine. And, I kind of sounded I warned everybody, don't take Cal lightly. Did I expect Cal to win the game? No. I thought Auburn, they may scare them and it pulled out. And then I certainly didn't think, I thought, well, they've woken up. They beat New Mexico pretty good. Hank Brown looks like, he could quarterback the team. And then Arkansas, and in a game that set football back years in the first two, let's be clear about that. Arkansas ended up being the better team at the end of the day. Now they got Oklahoma coming in, another team with a lot of question marks. And Auburn was the scheduling gods were nice to them, Mike. 5 straight home games to open the year. And nobody that you looked at the beginning of the season and went, well, that's probably a loss. Because I certainly didn't have them losing to Arkansas or have them losing to Cal, although I did think Cal would be tough. You know, I think Arkansas is probably, frankly, better than I thought they'd be. I haven't been high on Oklahoma. It's a winnable game for Auburn. Oklahoma's got a freshman quarterback. They're going to make his first start. Played well against Tennessee Saturday, but that's an important game. And Auburn people, they do have a reputation for not being patient with coaches. But really, the only one they've run out like quickly was Harsin. You know, Chiswick was there Tuberville was there for a while. You'd hear about Tuberville getting fired every year, and then he ended up doing something good. And Malzahn was just like, I mean, that 2017 team you mentioned, for 2 weeks, it was the best team in college football. Mm-hmm. They beat Georgia 40-17. They turned around and beat Alabama by 2 touchdowns, back to back. And those 2 teams play for the national championship in the best game I've ever seen in my life. So, I mean, for 2 weeks. And then I mentioned earlier what Crane said. The SEC in many ways is a game of attrition. Well, Auburn got beat up and injured, and they were missing their top running back, or maybe 2 of them in the SEC championship game against Georgia. Georgia beats them 28-7. And they would have been the first 2-loss team to make the playoffs had they won that game, but they didn't. Or wait a minute. Did they have 2 losses then? Yeah. Or maybe. No, they had 2 because they ended up with 4 that season. Then he got the big extension because Arkansas was open.
Right.
And he's going to go home. Here, we'll give you a $38 million buyout. Then they fire him after going like 6-4 during the pandemic, which against an all SEC schedule.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, so maybe that's it. But I don't think it. Paul Feinbaum said this about Hugh Freeze. And if you watch his body language, there may be something to it. He said it seems like Hugh Freeze doesn't even want to be there. And if you watch him, you know, you're kind of like, yeah, does he? I mean, it's not the same Hugh Freeze we know. I mean, he's got, you know, the 5 o'clock shadow. You know, he's just kind of throwing everybody on the bus. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
do you see the tweet from Bo Wallace?
I have mixed feelings about that because I saw it. It's damaging. You know, you don't want
for those that don't
there.
know. Yeah, I mean, I'll just say that Bo Wallace, former Ole Miss quarterback, basically just said that, you know, Hugh is throwing his players under the bus, and you know, I like Coach, but it's not a good look what he's doing over there. I mean, basically, just it was a quiet evisceration is the way I would look at it. Right? Like, I mean, if you read what he's saying without strong language, it's still pretty damning.
I think Bo Wallace owes Hugh Freeze a lot, though. I mean,
well, yeah, I agree. I mean, of course he does.
Yeah, but
that's why it's shocking to see that.
It was shocking, and you know, how much of Hugh Freeze and kind of what he puts out publicly is correct, and how much is an act. And you do have some things that have come up through the years that you kind of think act. I mean. Yeah. And then you throw in the fact that he just looks disinterested. Feinbaum said again, and, you know, Paul is in Alabama. I mean, he knows how these places, both Bama and Auburn, work. Probably he knows how it works details-wise. And he's right.
He was there for 30 years.
He said Hugh Freeze didn't make the call to bench Peyton Thorne. I was like, well, I don't know about that. But it look, it's plausible. And if you're Hugh Freeze and you're sitting there and you got that kind of thing going on, I'd probably be like, just pay me and get me out, and I'll go to Destin, Florida. And, like you can come down here with me to Destin, Florida, and we'll cook some average jambalaya and sit on the beach. And I honestly think that's what Hugh Freeze looks like he wants to do. And it is disappointing to me as someone that thought, whoever gets that guy's going to get a pretty good coach. But
remember, they wanted Lane.
Yeah, it looks weird. I mean, yeah, it was those two.
Hugh is not used to having these type of years. And I think the look on the face that you're talking about, to me, that's the look of a man who knows it's going to be a long year. And no matter what plays he dials up, it doesn't matter. Like at some point, you just don't have the Jimmies and the Joes. And he doesn't have them. Doesn't have a quarterback. Doesn't have a quarterback. And if you don't have a quarterback, you better be damn dominating in every other phase of the game, say like a Michigan. Michigan won a game throwing for 32 yards. For 32 yards. Orgy, there was no threat of him throwing a pass downfield and making a big play. None. And everybody in the stadium knew it, and everybody watching on television knew it. And it didn't matter. He was still able to win the game for the. Well, he didn't win the game for him. More on this on the boss. They had a running back who's freaking Jerome Bettis 2.0. It's kind of funny. Like Donovan Edwards is on the cover of the college football game. He's not their guy. He's not their dude. It seems like they got another dude in the Mullings kid who's just an absolute beast. But just bouncing around all over the place here. The Tennessee-Oklahoma game, again, Tennessee's just a cut above. I think that's less an indictment on where Oklahoma is and just more that Tennessee is legit, which we've been talking about on this show for a while. Those are some of the national stories. Real quick on Chat Row, Stephen asked, did Spurrier and Mike Leach face each other? You got me thinking on that. I don't think they did.
Not as head coaches.
No.
Mike Leach was the OC at Kentucky in the late 90s under Hal Mumme, and they played Florida every year when Spurrier was the coach. Now, Steve Spurrier Jr., after he left South Carolina, and I think he spent a year at Western Kentucky, he was with Leach at Washington State and Mississippi State. And so they know each other,
Of course, yeah.
Connected through Bob Stoops a bit,
right.
Leach was with Stoops that first year at Oklahoma. But
I wish we had more matchups.
It would have been great if they played in a bowl. And
hell yeah.
2 quotes. And Spurrier even said before Mississippi State hired him, because Junior was out at Washington State and he had visited with him. He's like, somebody's going to hire Mike Leach sooner or later. Shoot, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, and it was. And they never should have fired him in Lubbock. Blind Squirrels says, I wish Kirby had three wins versus Saban and not Gus. Yeah, I mean, that's been the one. That was, I got to talk past tense because Saban is now on TV and not on the sidelines, but that was his kryptonite, particularly in the SEC. You did not want to go up against Saban in the SEC championship.
Yeah, Mike froze up. Oh, well.
Oh, I did?
Oh, Mike Morgan is gone. It's a great time to have internet issues, isn't it, folks? There we go. You're back.
Okay. I on this end, I didn't even see it freeze up.
Maybe,
but yeah, I was just saying the record there. Nick Saban, you did not face him in Atlanta in an SEC championship game. So if that's Kirby's worst sin, I think that's okay. I think that's all right. I tell you what, we'll take a break. And we'll get to the JC5, the highly anticipated JC5. We've got the boss. We've got Group 5 John. Good day for the Group 5 again. Oh, by the way, there's all this stuff going on with the Pac and Mountain West and everything else. We'll get to all of it. And potentially the best game of the year thus far is coming this Saturday as Georgia takes a visit to Tuscaloosa. It is JC and Morgan, and we are coming right back after this.
Morning, Carl. Usual?
Yeah.
Your oldest was in here the other day. Said the two of you took a trip down to my neck of the woods. How'd that go?
You might as well give me one of those Carolina cars while you're at it.
I knew I liked that one.
Yeah.
There you go, my friend.
Thanks.
Hey, Carl. Congratulations.
See you tomorrow, Freddie.
You bet.
Hey, folks, want to tell you about our friends at Titan Construction Group really quick. They're a mid-Atlantic-based general contractor, specializes in retail, restaurant, and office construction. TCG strives to separate itself from other general contractors by adding value every step of the process. From project budgeting to estimation, value engineering to construction, they focus on those relationships and not the transaction. Titan builds partnerships one project at a time. Among their clients are Starbucks, Crumble Cookie, Blake Pizza, Home Goods, 15 plus years experience, based in Midlothian, Virginia, and contracted in Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So get on their website, TitanCGinc.com. That's TitanCGinc.com. Get in touch with Brad if you're in need of a general contractor that focuses on going above and beyond for their clients. That's Titan Construction Group, a proud sponsor of the JC and Morgan podcast.
Listen up. This is for construction professionals, contractors, facility managers, or do-it-yourself homeowners. Site Pro Rentals is ready to equip your upcoming project. We rent construction equipment for any size job. Boom and scissor lifts, telehandlers, skid steers, excavators, air compressors, generators, even small tools and equipment. Site Pro has you covered. If you are ready for better equipment rental, call Site Pro and rent from the local, friendly, easy to do business with equipment professionals. Call 972-RENT-NOW. That's 972-736-8669 to rent the newest equipment in the Atlanta market. Call 972-RENT-NOW or visit siteprorentals.com.
We're passionate about making sure that the Nest and Wild mattress is the best it can be. Made well and made right. Right here in Tupelo, Mississippi. So how can we do all that? Work. Hard work. And that means something. The Nest and Wild mattress is a movement. It's a pride in where you come from and where you're going. So get comfortable. Because this movement is just beginning.
Here's JC and Morgan.
It is JC and Morgan, presented in part by MG&A Wealth, a privately owned company since 1984. Salary-based advisors ensuring your best interest at hand. That's their top priority. They've been around for, 84. Let me do the quick math here. That's when Doug Flutie was throwing the Hail Mary to beat the Miami Hurricanes, right? Boston College won on the Heisman Trophy. So that is 40 years ago. Holy smokes, 40 years ago. For all your financial needs, you need a guy you can trust. Again, Sean over there at MG&A Wealth is your man. 954-289-9000, 954-289-9000. You can check out the website, mgawealth.com. Again, it's not one of those kind of one-size-fits-all, jack-in-the-box financial institutions. They are privately owned. It's not a chain. And you'll notice the difference when you deal with them, and they will do good things with your financial planning. All right, we are back. We are ready to roll. I have missed this. I need my weekly dose of the JC5.
It's time for the top topics in the sport. We bring the JC5. Number 1.
All right, I'm going to get a little salty here. I'm gonna be on this for a long time about this group of 5 playoff spot, right? Number 1, UNLV has been on the road and beaten 2 group of 5 or 2 Power 4 teams in Houston and Kansas. They go undefeated. They beat Boise. They win the Mountain West. No problem with them getting that spot. A lot of projections have them in. I love the running Rebels. I've got an immense respect for Barry Odom and the job he's done. They're good at either in the Athletic or ESPN had an article on them this week. I mean, I honestly, I don't know why they didn't jump into the Pac-12, but we'll talk about that. That said, all right, so I want to talk about the Bowling Green Falcons. And you mentioned quarterbacks, Mike. Connor Bazelak, who was the starting quarterback at Missouri a while back, is their quarterback. So the MAC, I think, is really good. Shout out to Pete Limbo, head coach at Buffalo, for beating the overrated Northern Illinois Huskies last week.
Got him in the boss. Yep.
Yeah, he'll be in the boss, but Pistol Pete there. But it's a good league. I mean, Toledo's good. Northern Illinois is good. I've watched Akron play, believe it or not, twice, 2 games this year, and they hang around a while. Joe Moorhead's got a good thing going. The Michigan directional schools are always good. Miami of Ohio has got a good team, despite the fact their coach cried about losing his kicker to Alabama, but which I didn't mind. But the MAC's good. So let's say with 2 losses, Bowling Green rolls through the MAC undefeated. I am going to raise Cain if they get passed over for, say, an undefeated Liberty with no schedule, or a team that didn't really play anybody that good, that even in James Madison, right? So, Bowling Green took Penn State to the wire at Penn State. They took Texas A&M to the wire in College Station. So my question to you is, should that count for something? These teams, are you expected to are you actually going to value a win over North Carolina or somebody that's not that good, going into two of the biggest venues in college football? And Penn State's really good this year. A&M is better. Are you really going to count that against them?
I would hope not. I was kind of looking at the G5 top 10 poll. He's got your fighting Barry Odom's number 1, UNLV at 3-0. They'll take on Fresno State Saturday. But there's not a lot of Mac love in this poll. So I don't know.
Bowling Green is not in the top 10.
Bowling Green did not make his top 10. You can take that up with G5 John. Yeah.
You are very disappointing.
Yes. Write him an email of your disapproval. I think he's a very respectable person. He'll write you back a very respectable response. But yeah, he's got 1 UNLV, 2 Boise State, 3 JMU, 4 Texas State, 5 Navy. Navy, by the way, beat Memphis. We could have an Army-Navy American Athletic Championship game. The service academies are rolling. How cool would that be?
That's going to be right after the game, before the game, right? That'd be before the game.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, which would be a little awkward, but that's
a nightmare.
I didn't even think about that. That's a great point. By the way, since you brought up a G5 conversation, can we talk about what the hell happened to North Carolina against JMU? I mean, good Lord.
Yeah, I've got that third on the JC5. So.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. But I watched some of that game, and I'm just sitting there. And Mac is a great dude, and it's been a joy to cover him. But he is done. I mean, I don't think there's any question. This is the swan song.
They were 3-0 heading into that game too. It was weird, right?
A 70 burger. 70. What the hell?
So, all right, so let's go ahead with number 2, and I'll just bump that up some so we get to
number 2.
All right, so first of all, shout out to the entire James Madison Athletic Department.
Yes.
I've said this before. I'll say it again. They're a hellacious little school. They beat, I don't know. They got a big student body. I don't know why I call them. They're in the hills of Virginia.
Yeah, they're not
so
little.
People consider them a little, probably a little in terms of like we don't associate them with the powers, but 30 wins in basketball this year. And they didn't get the upset in the first round like everybody thought, but they were close. Yeah. They were a good team. They put out the South Carolina Gamecocks in the NCAA baseball tournament this year. Pretty good in baseball, even though people were kind of questioning if they deserved to get in or not. That's fine. They got in and proved they belong. And then in football, they've been really good for a while. We all remember the talk last year where it looked like they weren't going to get to go to a bowl, and which was ridiculous. They ended up getting to go, and they were really, really good then. And then you roll into Chapel Hill. Now, this is coming off of a 13-6 slobber knocker against the Gardner-Webb Bulldogs.
Yes.
I mean, not a team again. So if you're James Madison before that game, you're probably like, man, we're not as good this year. Well, spank something and call me something, yeah, you are. So I don't even know how they got 53 points at the half. I know North Carolina's playing okay on defense. They've recruited well on that side of the ball, but they just don't seem to be consistent. Jeff Collins was supposed to fix it. I don't know. Jeff Collins had a couple of good years coaching Will Muschamp's players at Florida, but that's about it as far as his track record. I remember he had the psycho defense at Mississippi State. But
everything you could do wrong, he did do wrong at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, I mean, it just wasn't head coaching wise. But, I understand the hire, and I get it. The guy has a track. You expect a guy like that to come in and fix it, but you also expected Gene Chizik to come fix it. You also expected other guys to come fix it. It just didn't happen. They're bad on defense. They'll have one game that they're good, and then they take 3 steps back. So Mac Brown afterward allegedly says it may have gotten misinterpreted, like they talked about, like I'll just quit. Steve Spurrier, his last year at South Carolina, did hang it up the middle of the season because the players didn't listen to him anymore. And I think whenever you get beat that bad at home by what is still a good group of 5 team, it's still a group of 5 team, you hang up a 70 burger and they have 53 at half. You're out of the game before it even starts. I mean, they looked like James Madison looked like the Florida Gators when Spurrier was there going up and down the field on these guys, and they shouldn't have. They scored 13 against Gardner-Webb. But should Mack Brown have been so dramatic that it leaked? Because now, Mike, and that's my question to you, should he have said that? Should he have just maybe taken a minute? I like Mack a whole lot, but I think because that information got out, and you know how that is these days, it almost makes it to where he's out after the year. He's going to hang it up regardless. So barring some kind of miracle run, because they haven't lost an ACC game yet. I mean, you know, they could go undefeated. I assume they could go on a run and go to the playoff. It technically, but that loss is just like that. I mean, it came out of nowhere, and for him to react like that, for that information to get out, I think it's over. I think that's a good. It should be a good job and get a lot of interest. But I think the Mack Brown part 2 is over. Just based on that, I don't know how you recover.
Agreed on all fronts. By the way, Mark, I've got a number of new people in chat row today. Mark says 21,000 students at JMU. Yeah, it's a big student body. In fact, I had JMU on Champ Week for the Sun Belt Championship. They played Arkansas State, also an underrated fan base. Our hotel that's in Pensacola, Florida. It's not exactly a short trip. Was full of JMU fans. I mean, they are. It's a great fan base on top of everything else. Mark Byington, of course, was the coach. He's now at Vanderbilt. The 6 degrees of the SEC on that one. But to your point on Mack now is at a point in his life where he's just not going to. He's not going to hide his feelings. I know, speaking with him a couple years ago in preparation for a game, he was very adamant about where we're headed with NIL and the portal. He wasn't disguising that. All those coaches hate the way this system is constructed, by the way. Some just hide it and some don't. Mack was not going to hide it. You reach a point when you're 70-something years old and you have blank U money, you don't feel like you need to conceal much of anything. So to your point, I think he just said he looked at this. And the one thing Mack has always been saying at Chapel Hill, we got to stop being soft. We got to stop being soft. We got to be more physical. We got to be, and it doesn't matter how many different coordinators go through there, they're still soft. And you saw that when you let JMU put 70 on the board. That's a problem. So I think he realizes, first off, I mean, they don't have like the cutthroat power brokers that they do, say, with an Auburn football. But I don't think he would be allowed to stay another year. And secondly, Mack at this point got to realize it's just not working. Like they had their moments in the sun here and there. They had some big wins here and there, but they've never been able to solve the defensive issues. They've just never been able to. They might have the best running back in college football, other than the cat that plays at Boise State, Genty. But it doesn't matter. They're not stopping anybody. So I think it is it for Mack. And he's a great career, national championship, one of 3 coaches right now in active college football to have a natty. But I don't think he's going to be around much longer.
Amara in Hampton too, if he happens to bounce. I wonder. He's draft eligible.
Oh, he's draft eligible.
He's gone.
He'd be gone. Yeah.
Yeah. Craig in the chat row says, we'll call it chat row on JC and Morgan chat box.
That's what I call it. Chat row.
Chat row.
Yeah.
I like that way. I like the way chat row sounds.
It's got a word to it.
Craig says Mack just brought a house within a mile of university because you could use it in recruiting if it's within a mile. So much for that. I get it. Like I said, I like Mack Brown. They haven't been good on defense for a while. I mean, since Butch Davis was the coach.
Since Carl Torbush?
NASCAR. Hey, man. Learn, know what I mean? But no. John Bunning, when he had Julius Peppers, they were good on defense that year. But it's nothing like when Mack was there the first time in the late 90s. That's what they was defense, all defense. I mean, they had NFL guys. They just couldn't score against Florida State. That was their problem. So it's been a while. North Carolina, as a state, Mike's full of good defensive players, especially D linemen. So you're like, God, you can't. I mean, a lot of highly rated guys have gone to North Carolina too, and they weren't developed. And you're just like, well, I don't know. So It is what it is in Chapel Hill. Let's roll on to number 3.
Number 3.
All right, so let's talk about Alabama football. Shout out Tide 100.1. I'm on there every Thursday. Wimp and Barry.
Love Wimp.
Love those guys. Hey, Sharon, I want to tell you this trend now. Yeah,
That
he's
little
good.
bugger there. I'll tell you what, that little bugger.
Yeah, maybe it's 102.9. Tide 100. It's Tide 100. Anyway.
We're not here to plug stations.
Nah, not here to plug them. So let's talk Alabama football. So how and we have our Georgia fan, Blind Squirrel, is in chat row today.
Blind Squirrel's on fire today.
He is a Georgia Bulldog that happens
Yes,
to have
sir.
found our collection of shows, and I love it when he joins us. He's
awesome.
But Blind Squirrel Sports, he mentioned the Saban thing earlier about he wished Kirby had Saban. So I understand in Georgia, and you're in Atlanta. I'm sure sports talks about, that Kirby Smart better go win that dang game, boy. Go Dogs. Saban's gone. I get it. It's important for Kirby. That's the one run riddle he has not solved at Georgia at all. What is the percentage of his total losses now that are to Alabama? That's bad. Now, he did beat him when it mattered up in Indy. But in the state of Georgia, the state of Alabama, he is an offer against the Crimson Tide in his career. How important is this game for Kalen DeBoer? Because I'll tell you this. Alabama fans, they were a little grumbly about the South Florida game. Because they were struggling when they pulled away. Then they dominated Wisconsin. Wisconsin's not very good. I'll tell you that. They made a huge mistake with their offense. And their quarterback got hurt, all that good stuff. But if you lose this football game and you're Kalen DeBoer, and you kind of throw in the fact that Alabama hasn't had a national title since 2020, the last time they played for one in 2021 against Georgia, they lost. They certainly did get the Dogs last year in Saban's last win. But is there pressure on Kalen DeBoer to win this game? Because even though you're 4 games in, the first thing people are going to say, because they're fans, and they overreact like a lot of people do, and some media people too will overreact. Well, that's that's the changing of the guard. That's it. That was all about Saban. Alabama they're going back to the Mike Price era. Well, they never lost a game in the Mike Price era, but they're going back to what they used to be. Georgia's the new king, and you just kind of feel like that's going to be the reaction. So what, because they did hire this guy from Washington. He's great. He's a great coach. It'll be totally unfair. But my question is, will that unfairness come out if he happens to lose?
I think the distinction has to be made between, to pose your question, is there pressure? Absolutely. Immense pressure for all the reasons you said leading up to that question. Is there pressure versus will he be put on the hot seat after a loss? No, those are two distinct things. I think sometimes that line gets blurred where a coach is pressured and he has a big loss and the fan base is irate. That doesn't mean he's anywhere near the hot seat. He is not. I mean, this is the AD's hire, although, as we've said many times in this show, the AD rarely makes a hire on his own. Big money gets involved in these type of things almost always. Everybody's got a board of trustees, and powerful people on the board like to let their opinions on things be known and remind you who kind of rules the roost, so to speak. The bottom line is Kalen DeBoer ain't going anywhere, barring some type of meltdown in the first 2-3 years. Not on any type of hot seat if he loses this game. However, I mean, we've got a listener here. Shout out to Roll Tide Stu, who's based in Atlanta and one of the many Alabama. You should be surprised how many Alabama fans are in Atlanta. My goodness. Every week, he has gone out of his way to send me something on an Alabama win that wasn't impressive enough to his expectation level. And he speaks for many Alabama fans. So you mentioned the lackluster performance against USF. This started even before that. Now, obviously, they beat the doors out of Wisconsin, but there's just been a little bit of griping here. And it's always going to be anytime something is not perfect. Well, Nick Saban wouldn't have had that happen. Nick Saban wouldn't have had that penalty. Nick Saban wouldn't have had that turnover. Nick Saban wouldn't have had that issue at that position. Nick Saban wouldn't have had this game close, and Nick Saban would not have lost to Georgia in a regular season game. So all that's coming. That freight train is coming through the tunnel if they lay an egg or even lose by 2 points to Georgia. But by no means should there be any discussion that Kalen DeBoer is not the right guy or he's not the right fit. I mean, I've heard a number of these things already, and I don't think we're anywhere close to that.
No, I don't either. I don't think it's any hot seat at all. I mean, people have to understand too. Alabama did return a lot of good players, and that Ryan Williams is an outstanding freshman who Kalen DeBoer recruited and got in the boat. That said, they did lose a lot of players. We talked about attrition. We talked about depth earlier. They don't really have that depth. They've stayed healthy so far. But the physical nature of this next game is it's up there. I mean, you can ask Clemson, about the difference in playing Georgia and playing a team like South Florida on defense or whatever. Milroe with his legs is certainly going to be important, as Craig points out in the chat box. But I think I'm with you. There's no pressure with the AD and the board, and he's not getting fired because of this. It's not that. But what's going to happen is these fans, Josh Pate calls them trust fund fans because they've known nothing but success for 17 years.
Yeah.
The standards are ridiculous. And I still think they're playing up to that standard. I think doing something that's not happened a whole lot the last 20 years, lose to Georgia, especially with where Georgia is kind of now, you kind of that could cause, I think it'll cause some complaints. All right, on to the next one. All right. I think Phil's getting ready for the next one.
Phil is
There we go. How good is Ole Miss, Mike? Do we know? I think they're pretty doggone good, but man, I mean, they've played the YMCA, they've played the Sisters of the Poor, they've played the Brownies.
Yeah.
They played the Girl Scouts of America. These days, it's tougher than it used to be. But it's and I'm not knocking them. I think it's great. I mean, heck, that's kind of what I've talked about Spurrier a lot in this show. I mean, that's kind of what he used to do at Florida. He'd have 2 games against nobodies, and then they'd play Tennessee, and they'd be in rhythm and rocking and rolling, and Lane's a lot like that. So, but how good are they? I think they're top. I think they're legit, but I just don't know. They got Kentucky this weekend. Your thoughts about Ole Miss right now after 4 convincing victories?
Yeah, it's hard to get a gauge on them. I mean, it's almost like a 2-part question. How good are they? How good is their resume? Well, their resume is not really good because they haven't played anybody. But are they really good? Yeah. I mean, from what I understand, Lane Kiffin basically they got a huge collective there at Ole Miss. They a lot of money. And basically he said, he gave them the list. We need 10 of these guys if you want to make it to the next level. And I'll be damned if they didn't get most of the 10. You look at most of those were on defense. That's been the Achilles heel for Ole Miss for a while. They flashy on offense under multiple coaches, not just Lane. But with the exception of, maybe a year under Hugh Freeze where they got some dudes and eventually got on probation because they got those dudes, they have been rather soft on D. That's not the case now. I mean, you get a Walter Nolan here and you pluck another back 7 guy there, and they're loaded on both sides.
Yeah.
So, are they Georgia good? I don't think so. I could be wrong. It wouldn't shock me if they upset Georgia at home this year. I don't think they're as good as Georgia on paper. I'm not sure if they're as good as Texas. And I actually would give the edge to Tennessee. Now, those teams don't play one another, right? Let me double check. Get my handy dandy schedule out.
Do they?
Let's see. Tennessee.
I don't think they. Nah, they don't, because they'd have been talking about it.
Yeah, they would have been talking about
Kevin
that.
Thing.
So that's a game I'd love to see, but we're not going to see it, unless, of course, they met in Atlanta. But I think those 3 I mentioned are a little bit ahead of Ole Miss, but that is not a slight. Being number 4 in the SEC is like being number 5 in the country this year, and They're going to be a playoff team. No one's going to want to play them. Jackson Dart is that good. He's one of 8. Remember this stat for everybody out there. And I can't remember where I just read this, but it's in my notes. 8 quarterbacks in the SEC are north of $1 million in NIL money. 2 of them play for Texas, by the way. Arch makes about 3. There's another half dozen guys that make about 2, but 8 overall. And Jackson Dart I think he's in the $2 million club. He's worth every penny. Like, he's good. And then they've surrounded him with stud wideouts, stud running backs. They're not soft on the O-line like they have been in years past. So, look, I'm bullish on Ole Miss. I'm just a little bit more bullish on a couple of those other teams.
Yeah, and then those other teams have played. Trey Harris from Ole Miss is averaging almost 10 catches a game.
Stud.
38 receptions. Jackson Dart hitting 80% of his passes. The offensive line, you don't hear much about it, but they seem to be good through 4 games. But see, that's going to be the difference when you play Kentucky, South Carolina, and then LSU, although LSU unfortunately lost Harold Perkins. That's a step up defensive line-wise. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I just that's my thing. It's like I can't tell how good they are. But the Kentucky game will show us something, because Kentucky, I do think, is good on defense. All right, next one.
Number 5.
All right, speaking of the line of scrimmage, Tom Luganville talked about this in the offseason. SC, Oregon, Washington, UCLA going into a line of scrimmage league. I thought the Trojans would beat them because I thought the Trojans had too much offense, and I didn't know how Michigan was going to score. And, I know. But, hey, look, Sherrod Moore, that's kind of his kind of game. We mentioned it. They beat Penn State last year, never passing the ball at all in the second half. Never. So they won. Do you think that exposed SC a little bit as far as like line of scrimmage? Because I did think in that game, they were able to move it. It was a great football game. I loved it was on CBS. Loved hearing Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson do it. But how big of an issue is that going to be for SC going forward?
I think if there's any deficiencies on the line of scrimmage, you can't think of a team that's going to expose it more than Michigan. So, I mean, that's how Michigan is even in this conversation of good teams in college football, good to great. That's how they win this game. Again, you don't win games in college football throwing for 32 yards. That's 1990s Nebraska type numbers. That's not 2024 college football numbers. I don't think Southern Cal is nearly as soft as they've been. Danton Lynn, I think, is a really good coach who's on his way to bigger and better things. They definitely look the part more. They just got gashed by Michigan's O-line and a freight train of a running back that they could not slow down nor stop. But it's not like they just got completely thoroughly dominated in that game. Southern Cal had that game. I mean, they really did. And some key plays late in the game, not to take away anything from Michigan. I know Justin's listening, our big Wolverine correspondent. Michigan earned it. They got it. It's a huge win. It's a huge win for Sherrod Moore. It's a huge win for the Maize and Blue. Yeah, a lot of big time celebrities on the sideline for that one. From what I understand, the crowd was unreal. It was massive. I mean, just the noise in that building for that final drive and that final score was incredible. So good for Michigan.
I was just going to say CBS picks that up too. Their production on their games,
very good.
The crowd, it's amazing.
And that's, in TV terms, we say this all the time. One of the things as an announcer you have to do is know when to lay out, know when to shut up, and sometimes there's nothing that you're going to add that sounds better than crowd noise like that. And of course, a pro like Brad Nessler understands that. But yeah, I don't think I don't think Southern Cal walks away from this and said, "Oh, there's Lincoln Riley in another big game." Look, they beat LSU. If they would have lost LSU and this game, then that would have been the narrative. Lincoln, the game has passed him by. He's not the right guy. He's making more money than he deserves. This was not an embarrassing loss. This was a matchup against, say what you want, they lost their coach. They lost a lot of talent. They are the defending champs at Ann Arbor. And it was a very competitive game to the end. So I'm not going to bang on Southern Cal over the loss. All right, that's all
it.
5. All right, we'll take a final timeout. We'll come back. We've got the boss. We've got G5 John, and I'll read some of these comments in chat row. Chat row is lit, as the kids say. I tell you what, JC, these crazy cats in chat row are bringing the heat. We got a lot of new names.
Awesome.
We got a lot of new takes. We like that. So we'll come back more JC and Morgan after this. Mike here for our friends at MG&A Wealth. It's never a bad time to have someone on your side for all your financial needs. You need a trustworthy partner who has a true understanding of your situation in order to help you with smart and practical solutions. Since 1984, MG&A Wealth has helped their clients manage not just their wealth, but their lives. Today, as a nationally recognized wealth management firm, their team of pros remains dedicated to serving your best interests with an emphasis on personal attention and customized solutions. MG&A Wealth has clients all across the country, and they all get results. Don't put it off any longer. Call our friends at MG&A Wealth at 954-289-9000. That's 954-289-9000. MGAwealth.com is the website. They do more than manage wealth. They help manage lives.
Listen up. This is for construction professionals, contractors, facility managers, or do-it-yourself homeowners. SitePro Rentals is ready to equip your upcoming project. We rent construction equipment for any size job. Boom and scissor lifts, telehandlers, skid steers, excavators, air compressors, generators, even small tools and equipment. SitePro has you covered. If you are ready for better equipment rental, call SitePro and rent from the local, friendly, easy to do business with equipment professionals. Call 972-RENT-NOW. That's 972-736-8669 to rent the newest equipment in the Atlanta market. Call 972-RENT-NOW or visit siteprorentals.com.
We're passionate about making sure that the Nest and Wild mattress is the best it can be. Made well and made right. Right here in Tupelo, Mississippi. So how can we do all that? Work. Hard work. And that means something. The Nest and Wild mattress is a movement. It's a pride in where you come from and where you're going. So get comfortable. Because this movement is just beginning.
Here's JC and Morgan.
All right, welcome back. It is time now for the boss. Oh, okay, we did. Phil is all over it today, our fearless producer, Mad Dog Phil Molinax. But we can play this. We're not going to get a letter in the mail or an invoice. This is the instrumental version of the boss.
Hope so. I don't know. I can never tell. Yeah, I was talking about Skynet and the Matrix earlier. So,
by the way,
either way, it's okay. I mean, it's all right. We got it.
I like to think the Godfather of Soul would have been a big fan of college football had he still been with us, and would have enjoyed this show. Would have said, "Hey, Mike, JC, go ahead, play the song. We're good. We're cool." That's what I'd like to think. But, yeah. Enjoy the boss. Like that segment. Okay, so here's the house band version of the boss behind us. Top performers for week 4. How about Garrett Nussmeier? Continues to impress. 34-17 win UCLA for LSU. 32 of 44, 352, 3 touchdowns, no picks. I mean, he is just like a machine out there. If there was any doubts about if Garrett Nussmeier was ready for the job. So think about LSU. Jaden Daniels, who was terrific last night, by the way. I want to talk about a guy who looks the part already for the NFL. You go from him to Garrett Nussmeier, who sat on the bench for a couple of years, said, I'm not going to transfer. No portal necessary. I'm cool. I'll wait my turn. Falls the Heisman Trophy winner and having a great year himself. Missouri Vanderbilt was one of the best games on the board. Who knew Vanderbilt had a potential upset in them, but of course they would lose in double overtime. Mizzou running back Nate Noel. That's right, Nate Noel. 24 carries, 199 yards, 8.3 a carry. Did not have that on my bingo card.
That's why App State's terrible. He was at App State last year.
There you have it.
There
He
you
was
go.
tearing it up for the Mountaineers. And, of course, as JC always likes to say, props to the kill zone. Almost pulled it off. For
The kill zone was in full effect. And then Vandy's kicker showed up.
Yeah, and that was all she wrote. Cam Ward, look, I'm a Heisman voter. He's my leading candidate today on September 24th, subject to change a dozen times. 24 of 34, 404 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 50-15 throttling over USF. He's playing at another. The game is just slow for him. Like everything is just slowed down. It's effortless.
Talk about a recruiting story. That kid started at Incarnate Word.
Yep. And he a lot of teams wanted him in the portal. Miami got him. You mentioned Pete Lembo, Buffalo's 3-1, former South Carolina special teams coach, doing good things in the MAC.
Only loss was to Missouri on the road.
Yeah. Khalil Mullings of Michigan, out of Milton Academy in Milton, Mass. 75 stars come out of Milton Academy, JC. I'm not sure if he even was a 5-star. I'm just throwing that out there.
Very few. I will. Michigan, though, had a first-round draft pick that was from Rhode Island a couple of years ago. So
okay.
Michigan finds guys. They do.
Yeah, the pride of Milton, Massachusetts, 6'2", 240. He's the reason why Michigan won that game. 17 carries, 159 yards, and 2 touchdowns. By the way, forgive me if I get a little nerdy here. Pro Football Focus had him. They broke down his performance next level. He picked up 7 first downs on the ground, so kept the chains moving. He forced 5 missed tackles, and his elusive rating. Now, the average, and I have no idea how they compute this. The average elusive rating for a running back is 60. His was 196.1. So that's pretty good. Donovan Edwards on line 2. He was supposed to be their dude. As you mentioned, the entire JMU athletic department. Again, they're good in every sport. They're getting it done. They put 70 up at Chapel Hill. Who was the boss specifically? Well, how about 6-foot quarterback sophomore Alonzo Barnett III, not to be confused with Stetson Bennett IV. And Alonzo Bennett III threw for 388 yards, 5 touchdowns, and no picks. He also ran for another 99 yards and 2 touchdowns. Did you have that on your bingo card?
No.
Neither did I. And finally, the Tennessee defense. Mentioned the Tennessee-Oklahoma game. Tennessee's defense is just swarming, stifling, suffocating. Sounding like Mark Jones now. He was unbelievable. They were unbelievable. The average yards per play for Oklahoma was 3.3. Jackson Arnold in the second quarter and the Oklahoma offense, this is on the second quarter, they had 5 possessions, 1 pick, 2 fumbles, 2 3-and-outs, negative 22 yards. That's your Oklahoma offense in the second quarter. And that is the boss. Thank you, JB, or JB House Band.
Oh, yeah. Ow, just back.
This might play all the way. Well, while we're
take us out.
Yeah, we'll keep going.
I think
we can never
know more about Tennessee's defense when they go to Arkansas. I think Oklahoma does have issues up front.
Oh, they have massive issues. It's not. It's terrible O-line.
And we'll see. I mean, Arkansas turns the ball over. Like Taylor Green, as many good plays as he makes, he turns it over a lot. So,
yep.
And that's kind of Tennessee's MO. That could be a good ball game. It could be a blowout. Who knows? But I'm with you. What they've done on defense is it's turned up quite a few levels in Knoxville, and we'll see if Michael Hawkins Jr., a 3-star freshman who put 5-star Jackson Arnold on the bench, can lead the Sooners to an SEC win Saturday on the Plains. That's That's a dysfunctional game right there. I think.
Yes. Yes, it is. G5 John's top 10. JC is already going to craft a strongly worded email in disagreement for no Mac love. He's got San Jose State 10, then USF, Tulane, Memphis, who lost to Navy 56-44. Liberty played nobody. Number 5, Navy is 3-0. Good for the midshipmen, beating Memphis 56-44. Texas State, JMU at 3-0, number 3. Boise State at 2-1, number 2. They beat Portland State 56-14. And number 1, although he's not wearing the visor, JC's UNLV fighting Barry Odom, running Rebs. They had a bye week. They take on Fresno State this Saturday. Ashton Genty, by the way, the dark horse G5 Heisman watch. He rushed for 127 yards and only 11 carries. He's got 586 yards on the ground, 9 touchdowns in 3 games. In the old days, he might get an invite to New York, but I don't think that's going to happen. It's going to be 4 quarterbacks like it always is, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Maybe Luther Burden if Missouri tears it up. I don't know.
Boise's one of those schools, though, that they pay attention to what goes on out there. So maybe, I don't know. Yeah, and UNLV's not going to the Pac-12, by the way. Somebody asking chat room there.
Yeah, speaking of which, the 5 schools leaving the Mountain West for the Pac-12 scheduled to pay a total of $155 million in exit fees to join Oregon State and Washington State. Why don't the 2 leagues just join hands and merge? Why are we doing that? It doesn't make any sense.
It's like, the 2 people that have been divorced twice and they hang out with each other, and it makes total sense if they just got together, but then they just kind of want to like hurt each other, and it's a very toxic relationship. I think that's the bad. I thought about that too, Mike. I'm like, what does you have, and I wish I'd had the stats. I'll have them next week. The fastest growing states in our country. Because guess what? Florida wasn't good at football. The state of Florida wasn't good at football until the state started growing and people started moving there. Arizona schools were in the WAC at one point because guess what? Nobody lived in Arizona outside of Phoenix, and the Phoenix wasn't that big. I think you can still say nobody lives in Arizona outside of Phoenix, but Phoenix is a megalopolis now, or whatever the new Francis Ford Coppola movie is called. But it's, you're taking these California schools who have growth potential like San Diego and Fresno. UNLV should have been invited. I think they were, but no one want to know about that school and kind of their financials right now. That exit fee probably was like a bridge too far. And then the Mountain West came in and paid Air Force and UNLV a one-time infusion of cash to get them to stay, because Air Force was going to go to the American, right? So you have Army, Navy, and Air Force all in the American Conference. Hey, that makes sense, but we don't do anything that makes sense anymore, do we? With the names of the leagues, we don't do anything that makes sense. I thought it was a mistake for the Pac to get turned down publicly by Memphis, South Florida, and Tulane. They have no business going and adding those schools anyway. But I don't know, man. It's interesting. I thought for sure UNLV, Utah State would jump, but I don't think they are. And I think that does lead us to the point where it's like, why don't you just merge? Just merge.
I don't get it. And now you got
Conference
Gonzaga. Gonzaga in the Pac. Can we get a Gonzaga football team? Can we start the collection, put the hat around, raise some money for Gonzaga to line them up, suit them up, and play some football? Why not? Gonzaga football. You heard it here first, and maybe last.
By the way, shout out to BYU. Speaking of
great
religious
win.
Schools, great win over, and they're gonna be hell on wheels in the Big 12, man. BYU's won a lot of games for a lot of time. They were independent and they made it work for a while. Yeah. I mean, you don't count the those Cougs out.
Talk about a dedicated fan base. Some chat messages on chat row. Ted McGee, I bet Auburn wishes they had Robbie Ashford. Yes, but I think they really wish they went and got somebody damn good out of the portal. That's a difference maker, and they didn't, and they're paying the price right now. Chuck says a very good quarterback is a must in today's college football world, especially in the SEC. I've been preaching that for years on this show, as most will know, including JC.
It's the Morgan doctrine.
It's
Really
the
is.
Morgan doctrine, yes. Darius says, did you see where Harold Perkins' mom went out? Some news company, that's the new age we are in. Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of people under the media umbrella that are not really media right now, but it is what it is. I hate it for Harold Perkins. Such a unbelievable freshman year, then playing out of position sophomore year, and then junior year was supposed to be the return to glory, but it hasn't exactly worked out that way. EXO, like that handle, says running behind, loving the new song, great video too, got me in the feels. JC is a man of many talents. Well, that is well known. I mean, I think if there's any fact out there that cannot be disputed, is that JC Shurburtt is a man of many talents.
Many.
We haven't even, I mean, we need to like flash some of your old acting chops on this.
Nah.
No?
Maybe.
Oh, okay, maybe not. All right. But I've seen
Maybe
it.
so.
I'm just telling you. Think young De Niro, but without going psychotic in his old age. Think young De Niro when you think of JC back in his theater days. Blind Squirrel says that's insane. Hope JMU spends that $500K wisely. Oh, is that what they got to play Chapel Hill?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't want to clarify the hellacious little school comment I made. They're not. They have 21,000 students. I got that term from my dad because we were watching East Carolina play South Carolina in 1989, and they went up 14-3 early, and their fans are at Williams-Brice and Columbia raising all kinds of cane because they got great fans at East Carolina. And he called them a hellacious little school. They have 28,000 students. So they're not little schools, but they're kind of, when you look at them and you don't really do that, you're like, well, they're little schools. You know, they're the ones you pay to come to your place are little, you know, the little guys. And so that's what I meant by that. Certainly no disrespect to the James Madison University or East Carolina University, because they both have a combined 50,000 students.
Yeah, people used to say this about UCF all the time, that little school in Central Florida. They have a higher enrollment than Florida State, Miami, anybody. So I know what you meant. I mean, you weren't talking about actual enrollment, but we think of those directional or mid-major schools and we think little, but they actually, in many cases, have huge enrollments. They just don't have the athletic budgets that the so-called Power 4 schools typically have. Let's see, a lot of people relishing the UNC struggles. Harrison says DeBoer is going to catch a lot of hell from Tide fans should they lose Saturday, and probably unrightfully so. Yes and yes. Yes and yes. Let's see. I'm scrolling as fast as I can. Craig, if Kentucky holds Ole Miss under 30, South Carolina has a chance to beat them at home. I would concur with that. Yeah, I would concur with that even regardless. I think that's a potential trap game for Ole Miss. And when it comes right down to it. So I'm talking about Kmart. I did not see that coming. Does JC love the movie Animal House? I'm guessing JC does. Let's hear from the man himself.
I do. Five or dime was probably like a $5 for me. I've seen it several times, but it's not like on my like must. I mean, I love it. You know, hey, who doesn't want to see Donald Sutherland's butt cheeks? I mean, I'm just kidding.
Can we put that on a hotkey and just play it every week?
Who doesn't want to see Donald? A pledge pin. And then there's all these lines at 0.0. Mr. Blutarski.
0.0. That's Jim Belushi's crowning moment. I don't think his old SNL stuff, quite frankly, holds today. We could do a whole thing on SNL. SNL in the early 90s was peak. I wish that I could find old SNL funny. I just doesn't do it for me.
When they fired Adam Sandler because he was kind of like the 13th cast member. I mean, you know, but I showed you they had some really good talent, right? And it's kind of how old you are too. But like I never thought Gilda Radner was funny.
Yes,
right?
I know.
That's sacrilegious to people my parents' age, you know.
Yeah.
What? But what are you talking about? She's hilarious.
Right.
Now, but I love Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy.
Absolutely. Or George Carlin. So they hold up. So it's not just an age thing, but I mean, you go, okay, real quick, 1990s. Phil Hartman, may you rest in peace. Stay away from crazy if you can, man. It could save your life. Dana Carvey, Kevin Nealon, Chris Farley, Adam Sandler, Chris Rock. This is all on one cast.
Norm Macdonald.
And this is when SNL was actually in the business of being funny as opposed to just the same political takes that every nighttime show from Colbert. And I mean, they're all just like, they're writing from the same joke book and the same playbook. This is when it was just about comedy. Let's just be friggin' funny. And they impersonated every politician. They would have had a field day over the last 4 years because nothing was untouchable. Didn't matter what party you were for. Funny is funny. You know, Dana Carvey was funny whether or not he made fun of George Bush or whether he made fun of Bill Clinton or anybody. And the writing was so damn good. It was just
Daryl Hammond too. He was on.
Daryl Hammond was terrific.
He had a great
impersonator. Yeah. Oh yeah. But I still think Hartman was one of the best of all. You could put him in any skit and he would be so friggin' funny.
The sassy, sassy magazine.
Oh, in the middle of a sassy sandwich.
Middle of a sassy sandwich. Caveman lawyer was great. Dude.
Yeah. Oh, frozen cave. I'm just a
simple caveman.
Your technology frightens me. I don't know about compensatory damages, but what I do know. All right. Before we get off the rails completely, before we sign off, some early lines here. Georgia's a 2-point favorite at Alabama. Oklahoma's a 1.5-point favorite at Auburn. Somebody's going to be really miserable after that game. Notre Dame's a 6-point favorite against Louisville. That's in South Bend. If you want to make a case, Louisville, that you are legit, Tyler Shuck and company, I'm talking to you. Go in there and win that game. Florida State is at SMU. SMU's a 6-point. We thought that was going to be a huge game because we thought Florida State might be good. Oops.
Oh, yeah. By the way, shout out to the Ponies. After last week there's some crap that went down there. I guess TCU is not going to play SMU anymore, which is kind of
the Golden Skillet.
They're not going to play anymore.
Oh.
So everybody's mad in Dallas. The Dallas City Council wore shirts that said TCU sucks to the meeting. Then SMU proceeds to beat the dog stuffing out of TCU. 66-42 was the final. Sonny Dykes gets kicked out of the game because they don't like Sonny Dykes at SMU because he left, for TCU,
sure.
for the rival. And he just starts sarcastically clapping at the crowd and stuff. I mean, it was and then
I missed all this.
The CW, dude, the CW, which by the way, they're kind of self-depreciating with this because everybody makes fun of this on the CW, whatever. So they tweet out the final score because they have the ACC contract, SMU's ACC, with a song below it. I don't want to wait for our lives to be over.
Party of five, right?
That is amazing, dude.
Yes.
That was so awesome. So.
I think Katie Holmes should be the sideline reporter for every CW game. That should be a rule, and if we can get her under contract, then that would be fantastic. Last one on chat row. Bullish Zombie Rebel. Did you all like Mac TV? I heard Mad TV was very good. I just didn't see much of it.
I watched
those. Did you?
Here and there. There was a comedy show called The State that was pretty good.
Oh, that was on MTV. I love The State.
Yeah, they were like, it's the pudding guys.
$240 worth of pudding. Barry and Levon.
God, I can't even find those on YouTube. It's like
you want to know why? Because the music in the background is sexual healing. So they had to edit it out.
Yeah. $500,000 worth of pudding. Oh,
people say, Barry and Levon, why'd you get $240 worth of pudding? Shh, don't worry about it, baby. That ain't your concern.
I'm Barry Bourgeois.
Sagittarius.
Yeah, that's crazy.
We were definitely in the 1 percentile that actually loved that skit. But trust me, folks, it's funny. If you could YouTube it, I tell you, it's great to go ahead and watch. All right. As we sign off, do want to remind you, everybody, Site Pro Rentals, when renting new equipment, important to have a local, easy-to-do business friend in the industry that carries only the newest equipment and creates efficiency for you and your project job site. Call 972-RENT-NOW, 972-736-8669 for better equipment rental, 972-RENT-NOW. JC, some closing thoughts, if you have any. And if not, it's
just
okay.
Hey, looking forward to kicking back and watching a little Georgia-Bama this weekend. It's always a great game. Always nice to watch. And, we got some answers coming up about some of these teams here in the next month. I think we have some answers about some teams, but when calendar turns to October, it gets real, and some team like if you're Auburn, there's still hope to turn it around. I mean, this may all be a distant memory if you go on a run. If you don't, then this is just the beginning of your season circling the drain. And
Yellowwood online.
About it. Yeah, Yellowwood on line 3. Bobby Louder, But yeah, looking forward to that. I want to remind everybody to download the Chief Sports app if you're kind of part of our national audience. We talk about it on our Gamecock show and our other local shows on the app. A lot of cool stuff there, contests. It's going to be expanding. The Chief app is going to be really useful, and it's useful now.
We're adding some more soon. I know
adding a lot of stuff.
We're in works, and you can listen to Shane Matthews talk about what's going to happen with the Billy Napier situation every morning.
Yeah.
I love it because he's an analyst for the school, and he's already said he's gone and terrible. Like he calls it like it is, man. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. But we'll certainly be talking more about that. The Lane Kiffin rumors are out there. Everybody's heard them. Nobody has any answers, but here's what I do know. Lane Kiffin is going to become the highest paid coach in college football. And I think Kirby might have something in his clause that says, well, I have to be tied for that. So if he gets 15, Georgia's got to fork over another, 3-4 million, whatever it is. That is the nature of the beast.
Somebody call up the Georgia Athletic Department. Hey man, I'm willing to give that $1 that pushes over the top there with Kirby. That same dude, he's going to give $1, go to some bar in Gainesville, Georgia, talking about how he saved the program.
Yeah, exactly. As I have in my, for those watching, I put a little thing on my caption below. Joey Freshwater is in high demand, folks. Everybody wants a piece of Joey Freshwater right now.
He's a perfect coach for Florida. I just don't know if he bites. So we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know. And that'll come down to, it's not money. They're both going to pay him a lot of money. Where do you prefer to be? What city do you prefer to be? What program would you rather be at? I mean, that's the bottom line. But the money will be there on both sides, no doubt. All right, appreciate everybody on Chat Row. Appreciate everybody listening to us on all the myriad of formats from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, to Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play. For producer, Mad Dog, Phil Molinax. For JC, it's Mike saying so long. Thank you much for tuning in. We'll see you next week on JC and Morgan.